We're back with the family, desperate to find out what happened to a young woman from Dallas after her body was discovered under a bridge. Janeecia Mason's family reported her missing in Dallas earlier this month, and a few days later, police found her body under a bridge in Fort Worth. Mason's mother told Sydney Persing someone has to know something about her 19-year-old daughter.
She disappeared on March 17, 2023, in Dallas. 6 days later, 16-year-old Janeecia Nene Mason was found deceased beneath a bridge in Fort Worth. Investigators traced her final movements using phone data and surveillance, leading to 31-year-old Juan Miguel Aparicio. Evidence recovered from his residence included her blood and clothing. He was taken into custody. On February 7, 2025, Aparicio pleaded guilty, eliminating the need for trial or full evidentiary disclosure. He received life imprisonment. Despite the conviction, several key questions remain unresolved. Why was Janeecia in that location? Did she arrive willingly or under pressure? Were others involved? Could intervention have prevented the outcome? What occurred during the undocumented hours before she vanished? This is the case of Janeecia Mason, her disappearance, the discovery, and the facts left unexplained. Stay with us as we unravel this shocking story and uncover the heartbreaking details of what led to this senseless loss. Before we begin, let us know in the comments. Where are you watching from? And what are your thoughts as the story unfolds?
Nothing like she was nobody. She was somebody. She was my baby.
Police say Janeecia went missing out of Dallas, March 19th.
Welcome to True Crime Tales, where we reveal the crimes that shock communities and the secrets hidden behind closed doors. These are real people, real events, real consequences. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Now let's begin. Janeecia Mason was born in Louisiana before relocating to Texas with her family during her adolescent years. She attended Trinity High School in Euless, Texas, from which she graduated shortly before the events of this case transpired. Former classmates and teachers identified her as someone who participated actively in school social life. She was part of the school STEP team and joined local school-based support clubs, contributing to group projects and being present at several student-led initiatives. Outside school activities, she began employment at Chick-fil-A. Co-workers stated she was known for presenting herself in a straightforward and consistent manner. Her work behavior suggested responsibility and attentiveness. Those familiar with her described no reported behavioral shifts at work leading up to the disappearance. She lived with her mother, Barbara Taylor, establishing a stable family environment. Details regarding her siblings were not extensively publicized but confirm she grew up in a household with active familial interaction. In personal interviews, family members noted that she had recently discussed possible directions involving further education and long-term career development. These discussions were general, not tied to a specific institution or program, but indicated plans for progression. Her social circle consisted of former classmates, co-workers, and acquaintances she engaged with after graduation. There were no notable records of disputes or safety concerns associated with individuals she frequently interacted with. However, following her graduation, there were minor shifts in her social engagement patterns, possibly due to increased independence and lifestyle changes outside a school routine. This development is explored for relevance, but no definitive red flags were identified during initial reviews. On March 17, 2023, she was last seen alive. Witnesses reported observing her near an area in or around Dallas, Texas. According to affidavit-based documentation, the location was identified as an area associated with prostitution. The witness stated she entered a red vehicle driven by an unidentified male. No evidence at that time clarified if the interaction had been prearranged or spontaneous. Prior to this moment, her phone and social media data indicated normal activity patterns, including typical communication exchanges. There were no explicit reports of conflict, threats, or unusual communications. Investigators reviewed her digital footprint targeting indicators of coercion or planned encounters. The results were inconclusive. There was no established evidence of her seeking risk-prone environments intentionally. questions remained regarding the nature of her interaction with the unidentified individual driving the red vehicle. Whether she was meeting someone intentionally, whether she was induced or coerced into entering the vehicle, if prior knowledge existed between her and the driver, whether any threat or danger was present before or during the event. Law enforcement established that no one had reported direct communication with her immediately following the moment she was last seen entering the vehicle. Therefore, uncertainty remained concerning her mindset and awareness of risk. Following her disappearance, investigators focused on telecommunications and surveillance data. Her phone location data traced back to multiple connected points, one of which matched a residential location later confirmed to be associated with Joseph Aparicio, a primary suspect. The data track indicated movements consistent with travel between her last known location and the suspect's residence. Authorities obtained a partial license plate from surveillance footage near where she was last observed. This footage assisted in matching the vehicle to Aparicio. Through further tracking, investigators were able to place the same red vehicle near the estimated location where her remains were later found. Forensic timeline positioning indicates this occurred within days before discovery. Upon securing a search warrant, investigators entered the suspect's residence. Forensic specialists located blood evidence within the property. DNA analysis matched the blood to the victim. Additionally, clothing was found inside the residence, consistent with what she was last seen wearing. Efforts to clean or remove material evidence were detected through visible attempts at cleanup, identified with chemical analysis. These findings linked the location directly to her disappearance and death.
On New this morning, the Fort Worth police need your help figuring out what happened to a woman who was found dead under a bridge last week. They posted a message on social media with photos of Janeecia Mason. She was found under a bridge at 350 Precinct Line Road at about 9 o'clock Thursday morning. Police are asking you to call if you have any related information.
Following initial evidence collection, further investigation expanded to communication records. Authorities evaluated whether her phone connected to local wireless networks or if any attempts were made to power down or discard the device. Data suggests the phone ceased activity abruptly within a connected time frame corresponding to her presumed presence at the suspect's residence. Vehicle movement logs, derived from integrated license plate reader systems, confirmed multiple trips made by the suspect's vehicle around the time of her disappearance. One recorded trip placed the vehicle near the eventual dump site. Terrain and location reviews suggested selection of an isolated area. The site was determined to have limited visibility and reduced access frequency. Investigators documented possible disposal timing based on environmental assessments and decomposition findings. Further forensic study analyzed soil transfer on the vehicle and physical indicators correlating with the dump site. Investigators reviewed suspect history and prior criminal or behavioral patterns. Limited public records indicated minimal interaction with law enforcement prior to this case. However, interviews and background checks disclosed possible connections to the area associated with prostitution, consistent with witness observations. Potential motives were evaluated, but no definitive cause was determined from available documentation. No established relationship between the suspect and the victim was proven prior to the encounter. After the disappearance became public, family members initiated contact with authorities and community groups to assist in search efforts. Missing person reports were filed shortly after her unreturned contact attempts. Community involvement increased visibility of the case, resulting in accelerated investigative resources. As forensic evidence solidified the link between the suspect and the victim, charges were prepared. The substantial presence of DNA and clothing linked to her final known status provided reasonable cause. The case progressed toward criminal proceedings, supported by location data, vehicle placement, and forensic correlations. Authorities presented data detailing chronology, leading to issuance of warrants and detainment of the suspect. Additional forensic examination continued to refine evidence sequencing. Technical testimony was prepared to establish a consistent causality trail. At the time of his arrest, Joseph Aparicio was 29 years old. Public records do not confirm any known personal relationship between him and the victim, Janeecia Mason. Prior to the incident, There were no publicly documented connections or communications between the two. Investigators found no record of previous involvement, shared contacts, or social ties. His employment history was minimally disclosed, and no confirmed criminal convictions were publicly reported at the time of the arrest. The suspect was known to reside in Haltom City and move frequently within areas near Fort Worth. His vehicle movement patterns placed him in locations associated with the case timeline. Evidence indicated that following the crime, Aparicio's vehicle was driven through multiple locations consistent with concealment efforts. Investigators tracked movement using surveillance footage and digital location analysis. The vehicle was observed being cleaned, and attempts to hide evidence were suspected. Search teams later found traces of blood consistent with the victim inside the passenger area. Clothing corresponding to what the victim was last seen wearing was located at the suspect's residence. This suggested intentional removal and concealment of key forensic materials. Law enforcement executed search warrants at both the suspect's residence and vehicle. Inside the vehicle, blood samples were collected and analyzed. In the residence, investigators recovered clothing matching the description of what the victim wore. Digital devices associated with the suspect contained incriminating material, though detailed contents were not made fully public. The presence of both biological and physical evidence created a direct link between the suspect and the victim. Investigators relied on digital forensics, location data, and vehicle identification records to strengthen probable cause for arrest. The motive for the crime was never fully disclosed. No clear explanation was publicly provided by authorities or stated in official court records. Investigative theories included possible friction during an encounter, sexual motive, or an escalation of violence. None were formally confirmed. The absence of disclosed motive remained a noted unresolved aspect of the case. Using the affidavit and forensic evidence, investigators constructed the likely sequence of events. The victim was last seen entering a vehicle believed to be driven by the suspect. Location data and surveillance footage aligned to place the vehicle and the victim in the same area. The vehicle transported the victim to an unidentified location, suspected to be either the suspect's home or another private environment. At this location, she was shot twice in the head. The medical examiner confirmed gunshot wounds as the cause of death. The body was not left at the location of death. Instead, it was temporarily stored. Later, the suspect transported her body wrapped or positioned to limit visibility. The dump site was under a bridge near the Trinity River. There were visible signs on the ground of dragging, indicating the body was pulled before final placement. The absence of bullet casings or ballistic evidence at the recovery site indicated that the killing took place elsewhere. The victim's body was found without clothing. This supported the theory that the suspect removed clothing post-mortem to eliminate potential trace evidence. The clothing located in the residence during the search was consistent with this theory. The disposal site showed no signs of struggle or discharge, further confirming post-event transportation. After the deceased was identified, authorities notified the victim's family. Before discovery, she had been reported missing. Family members sought information during the search and expressed concerns regarding the investigation timeline. Her mother made public statements indicating disbelief in how events unfolded and expressed dissatisfaction with system processes. The local community reacted with shock upon learning the circumstances. Vigils and informal gatherings occurred. Psychological and emotional impact was observed within the family, though legal reporting remained focused strictly on procedural developments. No form of retaliation or interference with investigative processes was documented. Lead investigators included Detective Michael Sonez and Detective Veronica Coronado. The case began with missing person documentation and advanced when digital timestamps aligned with surveillance imagery. Evidence collection moved from street-level inquiries into integrated forensic analysis. Investigative stages included gathering surveillance footage from areas near last known location, requesting public assistance via witness statements, analyzing phone GPS and cellular tower data, identifying and tracking the suspect vehicle from several video captures, conducting database searches for registered owners matching the vehicle profile, executing search and seizure of the suspect's residence and car, processing biological evidence and confirming DNA matches, consolidating findings into the arrest affidavit. Digital forensics contributed significantly. Analysis of phone records, search history, and deleted content aided confirmation of movement patterns and post-incident behavior. Forensic examiners supported detectives in reviewing device data integrity and timeline synchronization. The arrest warrant detailed physical linkage between suspect and victim, transport indicators, and disposal methodology. Blood samples, recovered clothing, and vehicle movement were central evidence points. The affidavit marked the case as intentional and supported determination of cause and manner of death. On March 30, 2023, law enforcement arrested Joseph Aparicio on a charge of murder. Bail was initially set at $150,000. In charging documents, investigators presented findings as indicative of intentional killing and premeditated body disposal. Court proceedings involved pretrial filing and case conference. Defense counsel reviewed discovery materials, while prosecutors maintained the charge of murder based on forensic integrity, disposal methodology, and digital reconstruction. The motive remained undisclosed. There was no public indication of alternate suspects or accomplices. After extended procedural steps, Aparicio entered a guilty plea. On February 7, 2025, he was sentenced to life imprisonment. With the plea avoiding a jury trial, no further motive insight was made publicly available. The sentence concluded the criminal litigation. The legal case established responsibility solely on Aparicio, based on forensic proof, vehicle link, digital evidence, and body transport confirmation. No appeal or post-conviction challenge was reported at sentencing. On February 7, 2025, the legal proceedings against the defendant, Aparicio, reached a conclusion when he formally entered a guilty plea to the charges brought against him in relation to the death of Janeecia Mason. As a result of this plea, the court immediately imposed the sentence of life imprisonment, removing the need for a full trial. During the court session, multiple procedural steps were followed in strict accordance with legal protocol. The session included impact statements from individuals directly affected by the crime, including members of the victim's family. The defendant remained physically present in the courtroom but exercised his legal right not to speak further beyond the plea submission. The victim's mother provided a statement positioned under allowable victim impact parameters. During her address, she spoke directly to the defendant, referencing the loss and the irreversible consequences of his actions. The court officially acknowledged the statement without legal challenge. Prosecutors presented a final briefing emphasizing the importance of recognizing the victim's dignity, with focus on the human implications lost due to the crime. Their remarks highlighted factors relating to the manner of death, how the investigation linked the defendant to the case through forensic analysis, and the necessity of the sentence to reflect the severity of the offense. Because the plea was entered prior to trial initiation, the judicial system bypassed a complete evidentiary presentation and cross-examination process. The plea agreement effectively prevented a broader courtroom examination of events, motives, and systemic failures. Numerous potential investigative questions therefore remain unresolved. No formal legal challenges were posed during the sentencing session. The final ruling was entered into record, establishing life imprisonment without parole consideration for the defendant under the specified charge. Due to the guilty plea, the following remained unexamined in court: whether there were other possible suspects, the motive behind her presence at the location, if coercion was involved, potential prior indicators of risk, precise timelines leading to her death, details about actions taken during the disappearance period. Following sentencing, the defendant was transferred to a state penitentiary facility for processing under life-term custody conditions. After the sentencing, the local community initiated various memorial actions in recognition of the victim. At Trinity High School, where she was a student, classmates and faculty organized a balloon release ceremony. The event followed standard memorial procedures, involving symbolic representations of remembrance but avoided overt commentary on the case due to the sensitive nature of the legal outcome. Across social media platforms, digital tributes circulated. These included images, statements of remembrance, and use of hashtags linked to student advocacy and youth safety. The posts steadily increased following the release of sentencing information. Multiple rallies were organized throughout the area. These were arranged by local community groups, youth advocates, and safety organizations. Their focus centered on promoting awareness of youth vulnerability, calling for improved protective measures, and demanding accountability improvements. Attendance was primarily local, though some emerged from wider social media connections. Classmates described her involvement in campus life, her ambitions, and her relationships. Though these reflections did not address aspects of the case itself, they contributed to perceptions of her life before the incident. Local businesses and community leaders issued statements or symbolic gestures, such as lighting arrangements or text-based acknowledgments. School counselors extended availability to students during the period following sentencing. Several unexplained issues regarding the events of March 17 persist and were not fully addressed due to the absence of trial testimony. Unknown whether she arrived voluntarily. Unknown whether coercion, manipulation, or external influence contributed. Phone location data indicates movement from familiar environments, but communication logs lack identifiable threat indicators. No formal determination has been made whether she was deliberately targeted by the defendant. Investigators found no clear pre-existing pattern of contact, though digital traces suggest potential monitoring. No evidence of previous direct contact between victim and Aparicio confirmed. Witness statements suggest she may have known someone connected to him, but this remains unverified. Records indicate she encountered multiple individuals in the days leading up to March 17. No confirmed threats from these individuals. The timeline between disappearance and body discovery suggests possible intervals where earlier police action could have located her alive. Call logs show reporting delay due to unclear urgency assessment. Missing person report was logged but not escalated to critical status immediately. Lack of standardized high-risk assessment contributed to early inaction. Forensic evidence supports direct involvement of Aparicio. No confirmed identification of additional participants. Unknown whether behavioral indicators were present. No documented reports of concern from immediate contacts. These unresolved areas generate ongoing debate among community analysts, legal scholars, and youth risk prevention advocates. Examination of the case identifies broader risk categories. Classification delays resulted in tactical lag. Limited cross-agency coordination. Lack of urgency attributed to absence of immediate danger indicators. Youth in certain regions face increased exposure to predatory environments. Limited formal protection or monitoring systems. The case highlighted potential issues involving exploitation, though not confirmed in this incident. Prevention systems insufficient for early recognition. Priority distribution focused on active investigations. Missing reports classified as non-criminal until further development. No dedicated rapid response protocol implemented for high-risk youth disappearances. Forensic identification was primarily facilitated through digital tracing and DNA extraction. Social media cross-analysis contributed to movement mapping.no structured early alert system. High-risk area monitoring primarily reliant on voluntary observation. These systemic shortcomings are now under strategic review by local advocacy groups. Following resolution of legal proceedings, the family relocated from their previous residence for privacy purposes. Their current location has not been stated for safety reasons. Family coping mechanisms include restricted public appearances, engagement with specialized grief consultants, support from limited personal contacts. They submitted a statement via legal channels defining justice as accountability, specifically referencing the sentencing as a procedural endpoint rather than emotional closure. Local community actions since include youth protection workshops, launch of proposed monitoring initiatives, annual remembrance acknowledgement. The record emphasizes that the victim had academic potential, social influence among peers, aspirations documented in school advising sessions. Community discourse portrays her as a representation of underprotected youth environments. Advocacy groups have released non-emotional statements urging heightened vigilance, formal procedural enhancements, community-based early intervention structures. The case exemplifies the impact of incomplete systemic protection. Forensic technology demonstrated capability in resolution, but only after irreversible events. The community's collective response indicates supportive potential post-incident, though inadequate preventative functions. Youth intervention, awareness, and immediate reporting strategies represent primary improvement opportunities. Everyday environments may include hidden risks not immediately detectable without structured protection frameworks. She left home on an ordinary day and never returned. Hours later, her phone went silent, location data ceased, and surveillance captured movement no one could explain. By the time investigators traced her final steps, all that remained were digital fragments and an unidentified body concealed miles away. A suspect emerged, but with no eyewitnesses and no warning signs, questions spread faster than answers. What led her there? How did the situation escalate unnoticed? When police received the missing report, action stalled. When evidence surfaced, it was already too late. The courtroom never heard the full story. A single plea prevented it. Now only facts remain, data points in a sequence that brought her life to a sudden end. This is the case of a young girl whose disappearance revealed more than one crime. It exposed a system that noticed too late. If you found this story as gripping and heartbreaking as we did, don't forget to like this video and share it with others. And if you want to hear more true crime stories that uncover the mysteries behind these tragic events, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell. You won't want to miss our latest stories, updates, and discussions.